Hello everyone, welcome to the Melting Pot podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Monkhouse. The Melting Pot is as a result of my hunger for optimizing business performance, scaling up organizations, corporate culture, customer addiction, building high-performing teams, along with a few other obsessions along the way. I've spent the last several years working for and with some of the most successful, top-performing companies in the world. And this podcast is my attempt to synthesize what I've learned along the way to help you build a high-quality business and live a more fulfilling life. If you enjoy the podcast, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at dominicmonkhouse.com. Hello, welcome to the Melting Pot podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Monkhouse, and today I'm talking to Sue Hollis. Sue is in the US. She's going superbike racing today, so she's been up at 3:30 this morning. Thank you to Kevin Lawrence, Coach Kevin, for the intro. Sue is corporate executive, entrepreneur, mother, author, and now she says she's an adventurepreneur. She doesn't like the term work-life balance. She prefers life harmony, getting things in the right order and not trying to do things that you don't like to do, which is why 3 years ago, she stepped down as the CEO of her 180-person, almost 20-year-old corporate travel business in Australia, found a CEO to replace her. We talk about how she did that. We talk about how she built that business based on some really strong core values, and there's some tips in here for people who are thinking, how do I use my values and how do I really build a recruitment engine to make sure that we get the right people in the business. Values and culture are really important. In fact, she even went on Tony Hsieh's Zappos Culture Bootcamp in the early days. She managed to fit it in with some bike racing in Vegas, so it all worked out. I've had a fantastic time today talking to Sue. I'm sure you'll enjoy listening. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sue Hollis. I am a coach, a speaker, a writer, an adventurepreneur. And as we speak, it is literally 4:00 in the morning in Washington State in the US. I'm speaking to Dom very excitedly just prior to about to hit the racetrack to race superbikes around the Ridge in Seattle. In previous lives, I have been a corporate heavy hitter with global airlines, British Airways and Qantas, before braving the wild world of entrepreneurship and starting my own business, a company called TravelEdge, which became a multi-million-dollar organization and which I stepped down from about 3 years ago. I still own it and I'm still on the board, but I decided to explore a different kind of life. And I'm currently living that. So that's me.
Sue, thank you very much indeed for coming on today. Why are you in the US racing superbikes?
Many people ask me that question, Dominic, particularly my family. I've been racing motorbikes since I was 16. Before I could legally ride, I was racing. And it's always been a passion of mine. So I've ridden motorbikes since I was very young. I love the adrenaline. I love the fear. I love the, if I make a mistake, it's going to really hurt. It's going to really bite me. And I just love that complete absorption where you can think about nothing else. You know, when your life's on the line and you're doing, upwards of 220, 230 kilometers an hour, you have to be very focused. You have to be very driven. You have to be determined, and you have to hang on really tight as well. So it's kind of an analogy for life, I guess, more than anything else.
Oh, blimey. And do you ever go on holiday and do nothing?
No, never, no.
I sort of thought that might be the answer. You said in the intro that you're an adventurepreneur. Is this what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think having left my business, as I said, 3 years ago, I decided to create a business based on lifestyle. Effectively, what that means is now that I'm a coach, a guide, a speaker, I'm an author, as well as much as kind of keeping my eye on the business, which I obviously still do. I kind of have a business that lets me coach clients. So I work with primarily people looking to come to the same point that I have at some stage, where you kind of go, well, okay, I've achieved all the measures of success. Is this what life's supposed to be about? So I coach people and I speak and I write, but I also get to do adventurous things. So I mountain climb I'm a serious rock climber. I'm a diver. I run marathons. I race motorbikes. And I'm literally currently, as I said, racing today and tomorrow. But that's all part of literally a kind of a 3.5-week trip for me where I'm just on my bike, just cruising around the US and just connecting with people, seeing amazing things, riding amazing roads and eating really bad American food.
So let me take you back to this journey of yours. So you said you were with Qantas and British Airways. What were you doing for them? And have you always been in travel?
Yeah, I have. I kind of bluffed my way into travel, as we kind of bluff our way, I think, into most things. So I was with British Airways for about 15 years. So initially in Australia. So I started very young. I had an amazing mentor who saw something in me that Lord knows I didn't see in myself, who employed me and to a reasonably senior position straight off the bat, where I didn't know the front of an aircraft from the back. And I was put in charge of New South Wales, which is a state in Australia. So I was in charge of the operation and the sales for British Airways at 25 or something, which was very scary because the bulk of my team were kind of in their 40s, and you can imagine they were really excited about having a 25-year-old that knew nothing about the business coming in as their leader.
And also a woman.
And a woman, because I'm very old. That was a long time ago. So that was quite challenging. So British Airways in Sydney, then I was transferred to London. I ran London sales for British Airways. And then I ran the 767 operation for BA. And so that was pilots, operations, crew. And at that stage, my husband, bless him, was still in Australia. We were commuting for 4 years. And somehow, goodness knows how, I discovered that I was expecting my first son. So we moved back to Australia. I wanted him to go there. And British Airways, very conveniently for me, then bought a 25% stake in Qantas. And my job, once I came back from maternity leave, was called the Joint Services Agreement, which was basically bringing the two airlines together. So I did that for a couple of years. So trying to bring two huge cultural entities together, neither of which wanted to be together. So that was my job for a couple of years. And then I decided that I wanted to stay back in Australia. So I headed Australia sales for Qantas after that.
Aha. And so why did you decide, you've been successful there, why leave corporate life? And is the next thing starting your own business after that?
Generally, that's not a step that most people take. I don't think, Dominic. I think it's interesting because I think, you've either got to have the entrepreneur, they say, entrepreneurs are potentially born. And I don't think I necessarily was, but I realized that I was coming to the end of my rope, I guess, to a degree. And look, it wasn't Qantas's fault, but I was starting to feel in a corporate environment that I couldn't make a difference. In a big, heavy-duty cultural place, I was finding it harder and harder to live my values. And that became a real shock for me because, I suddenly realized that my values were becoming more important to me than the next promotion. And I never saw that coming. When I was on that track, it was about the next promotion, the next opportunity, getting higher, faster, quicker, being the youngest person to be the most senior person. And it was a process of evolution, I guess, over a couple of years where I suddenly realized that I didn't want to ask myself, was I happy? Because I knew the answer would be no. And if the answer was no, then I would have to do something else. And eventually, I think you kind of reach the point where you have to answer that call. You can't ignore it any longer. And for me, the answer was I wanted to create something that really made a difference, where I could really live my values and where I could build an environment of great culture, great people, great service delivery, and really just do it by myself. So, I stepped away from the security and went into the unknown.
Where do you think your drive comes from?
Oh, now that's a really scary question because it's frankly something that I've had to learn to manage. I think my drive certainly comes from, if we go back and back and back, my drive comes from literally wanting to be, we kind of laugh about it in my family, but there's a folklore story that my dad says, it was back in the old days when fathers weren't part of being in the birthing and the nurse would come out and say, congratulations. And my godfather, who was with my dad at the time, tells the story. They came out and said, congratulations, Mr. Hollis, you have a baby. And he said, what is it? And they said, it's a girl. And he went, oh. So I've grown up hearing that story. So I'm sure a good psychologist would take me back to that point and say, that was my desire to say, right, well, you want a son, you're about to get one. Look out.
Were you the oldest?
I was the oldest, and I subsequently did have a beautiful brother. That story it's family folklore. My dad denies it, but we know it's true. But I think it kind of comes from that. And I remember as a small child, my mother taking me into a grocery store, and I could only have been about 5 years old, and her asking for something, and the Italian grocer in true Australian tradition went to the back of the store, called his wife out, was quite abusive in Italian, until this woman, came out very subserviently and gave him what he wanted. And I remember saying to my mum, why did he speak to her like that? And he said, well, he can, because that's his wife. He's her husband. And as a 5-year-old, I remember thinking, and that is never going to happen to me. I am never, ever going to be in that position. I'm going to take control. And I can still remember the day. So yeah, it goes a long way back.
Okay. What were the values that you felt were going to be challenged if you stayed at Qantas?
Well, really interesting. One of my core values had been growth and learning, and I kind of was working in an environment, and no disrespect to my former employers, but the value that they placed on people, in terms of their growth and development was virtually minimal. And I won't name the organization, but one actually did say to me, so I had a huge sales force and a group of people. And I remember saying to the CEO, we have to train these people. We have to develop them. And he said to me, they have a job. They should be happy. And that just went to the core of, my heart. It was just like, if we're not bringing out the best in these people, then we as an organization, are sadly lacking. And it was a long time ago, and life's changed in both of those organizations, so it's certainly not there, now, but it certainly was the principle of, you have a job, an amazing organization, people are really lucky to work for it, and they should be thankful, and we don't need to invest in people. And when I realized I couldn't make a difference to my people, that's when things started to kind of spiral for me.
And so when you set up your own business, then you've got that sort of desire to learn and develop and bring out the best in people. You've obviously got your drive, you've got your organizational skills and your sales ability. What else was at the core of that new business that you wanted the business to give you that Qantas weren't giving you?
It's really interesting because I started my business with a business partner. He was at Qantas with me, and we were incredibly fortunate. We didn't realize it at the time, but we had, if you kind of look at the skill set circle, he had all the top skills. So he was an actuary, an investment banker by trade. So he was certainly the numbers man. And so he was very, strategic, big picture thinking, whereas I was the, hands-on deliverer owner. And I don't think we realized at the time going into partnership can be incredibly tricky. And we were very fortunate to kind of discover that we had a complete skill set between the two of us. We decided that we wanted to be in business together. We spent quite some time working out what that vehicle would be, because we knew that we had incredible talents between us. We knew that we wanted to create a values-based business. So a culture, I guess, having come from quite a tough, quite a kind of chauvinistic, very difficult culture at the time, we wanted to create a business where basically we could create an environment where people could be the very, very best that they could in whatever it was that they were doing, both personally and professionally. We wanted to create something that added amazing value to clients, that clients went, wow, that's the best that it gets. And create an environment where, where we too could utilize the skills that we had and hopefully make some money. So they were kind of the priorities. And, we actually played around, and we knew that we wanted to work together. And we played around with a number of things, and we kind of figured that we'd start with corporate travel because that's where we could do the least damage. So that's kind of where we started.
And then you were massively successful. I was going to say you were an overnight success in when did you start how long ago is that? When did you start the business?
We started the business in 2000, and my partner and I were fairly high profile, so in the industry, so we kind of flew under the wire for a little bit. And we knew, starting in travel, particularly corporate travel, in those days, it was a high labor intensive business. And so we knew it would take us, and we needed to invest in technology because we became very clear on what our market niche was and where we wanted to attract. So when we came into the business, the market's changed significantly, but we knew there was a gap that we wanted to fill. So when we came in there, we had big players like American Express, those kind of guys who did great technology, not brilliant service. Then you had the boutique players who did great service and, weren't big on terms of technology. And there was a beautiful sweet spot right in the middle. And that's where we position our business, to do both, to do great technology, great service, and to really make a difference. So we kind of positioned the business in there, but it took literally kind of 2 years. And we knew it would take us 2 years, and we kind of put the money aside to do that because we, literally didn't make any money. And I was very supported by my husband, who basically, and I was the major breadwinner, who basically said, look, I don't care if we eat mince for the next 2 years, or 3 years or 4 years. And, if that's what you want to do, then, follow your passion. So we did. But the first 2 years were breathtakingly hard, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, it's that time when, have you really got the market? Does your partnership work? Money's going out the door and the revenue's not coming in, and you just get these emotional highs and lows where there are times when you just think it's not going to work.
Constantly. And, I think if I had a crystal ball 20 years ago and I'd have seen what it took, what it would take to get that business up and running to be the success that it is today, I don't know that I would have had the courage, because, you just nailed it. It's a complete roller coaster. But, I guess 20 years ago, my crystal ball was a little clouded. I didn't see it. So I just kind of went into it and was very excited. But the first year in business, we woke up one morning, and it was a Monday morning, and Ansett Airlines, who was a big Australian airline, had gone bankrupt or gone to foreclosure on the Monday, and they owed us a lot of money. Day two, their catering company, which was our biggest corporate client, went into bankruptcy. They owed us even more money. And 3 days later, tragically, it was September 11 and everyone stopped flying. So, and we had a $1 million airline bill to pay the next Monday. So, when you kind of get all three things like that hitting you in your first year of business, where you've got no fat in the business, if you can weather that, I think you can weather everything. But Lord, even when I talk about it now, it almost makes me want to throw up. It's such a scary time. It hasn't left me. The trauma is still in my body.
Over the next few years, then, what happened? Tell me some of the highs and lows of the journey. What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy?
I enjoyed that the business delivered, from a values perspective. So, the first year we just literally, we scrambled, we trying everything to make money, and we would do everything to make money, and we would grab any customer that we could to make money. And I think, just to kind of get some root networks down. And I think the joy that the business really has given me over the last few years is, I guess, firstly, that we delivered in terms of a value organization. So we became very clear on our values. Our people established our values. They were built from the ground up. So our values have been and still are the absolute key drivers of our business. So we hire and fire on values. We have the belief that we can teach most of the skills, but if people don't come into our business with the values that we aspire to and aren't prepared to live them, then we don't want them in the business. So we can have an outstanding performer, but if he's not living our values, we won't keep him in the business. And so to have a values-led business has been sensational. And it's also obviously from a cultural perspective, but also from a scalability perspective, because, when in the early days I could touch, we had 5 people, 10 people, 15, 20, I could touch them, and I could instill those values and they could see them in me every day. But, you get to a point now where we've got 180 people in the business. If those values aren't inherent and if they're not integral into everything that we do, if they don't drive every single business decision that we make, then the business isn't scalable and we lose that. So values-led business is one of the things I'm most proud of, and the product that we bring to our customers is exceptional. Incredibly proud, particularly of the team. I hate to think of the fact that I've left over, 3 years ago and they've continued to do amazing things. That's sometimes a bit of an ego blow, but, just what the business needed. And the product that we deliver to our clients in terms of service delivery, technology is exceptional. And thirdly is that it delivered my all-encompassing value, which is growth and learning. I've had people that have been with me pretty much through the whole journey. The business has just celebrated its 19th birthday. I've got people that have been with me for 17, 18 years. And that, one of my favorite stories is, I had a young guy that started with me. He was young, 17, 18 years ago. as a domestic consultant. And from a consulting perspective, that's kind of a very basic, that's kind of, you don't know very much. He's progressed through the ranks and he now runs one of my most successful businesses. And, I've seen him grow, get married, have children. And to see him now, having come from literally kind of a very, very junior position to now successfully managing, a very, very important piece of my company. Wow, that's as good as it gets, frankly.
It's fab, isn't it? I think if you own or run a business, you can help create, I was going to say wealth, but that's not what I mean. It's that opportunity for great people to do more than they ever thought was possible. Do you know what I mean? You hired him because you're looking at potential, and it's just, you just get a great sense of satisfaction when those people that you back go on to just keep delivering.
Seriously, it is as good as it gets. And it's one of the reasons why, when we started the business, we knew that corporate travel, we could start with that. But we also wanted to use that as a platform to be able to create new businesses and take the business in different directions. Again, obviously financially, to, the security of the business, but 3, to give people different opportunities and opportunities that they wouldn't have had in a traditional business. And so this particular gentleman, for example, we started an events business. He ran that for quite some time. And now he's running a very, very different, still kind of in corporate travel, but it's a very, very different model that we've developed. And he's helped develop that model and he owns it and progresses it. And he couldn't have seen that 17 years ago. We couldn't envisage where the business would be 17 years ago, but we knew if we kept creating it and it would keep growing, then opportunities would come up for people to stay within the business and not have to leave because we could give them new opportunities.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, where people sort of say, I don't want to invest in my staff because they might leave. And it's like, God forbid that you don't invest them and they stay. Did you develop any sort of things other people could learn from or steal around hiring for values or firing for values?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, one of the people that I really admire in the business world is Tony Shea from Zappos Shoes. Tony's created an incredibly successful business, and he actually runs a boot camp in Vegas. And funnily enough, there was opportunity. I was racing in Vegas and so could do the boot camp, the week after. Don't you love it when fortune gives you those opportunities? And so I attended one of his boot camps because I really wanted to understand culture from his perspective. He has one of the top 3 organizations in the world in terms of culture. And even Tony, when you speak to him, says if I was to go back, I would invest more in culture. So one of the things, or a couple of the things that we do, particularly from a values perspective, is from the hiring stage. And it might sound daunting, but it actually isn't. When we have a new position that's available, that's opened up, our HR department sorts through the applications and we look at, obviously technical capability. So, can they technically do the job? And then, we have a quick interview that makes sure that they can physically, technically do the job. And then they go on to what's called a values, literally we call it our green room. And what happens then, so an announcement goes out that, there's an interview for this position. And 6 people from within the organisation, within anywhere from the organisation. So it could be my CFO, it could be my accounts clerk, it could be a domestic consultant, account manager, anyone that wants to attend that interview. So they basically conduct a culture interview, a values interview. So those 6 people literally sit with this, with this potential applicant, and they talk to them about culture and they talk to them about values and they understand, where they've made values-based decisions. And they really get an understanding of whether this person is a cultural fit for our business. So technically, yes, they can do the job, but do we want them? Will they add and contribute to our culture? And it sounds quite daunting, and it might be, but it's also a double-edged sword, I guess, well, if there's a positive of that, because it actually gives the person that's coming into the company an opportunity, because they would have been interviewed by HR, so they've heard all the company speak. So it's their opportunity to say, what's it really like here? Do I really want to work here? Do these values really matter? Do people really adhere to them? So it gives them an opportunity to see where the fit is right for them. And it also means that if that person gets the job, they've got 6 people that are really invested. They've made the call that this person gets the job. And those 6 people are really invested in making sure this person continues. And they make the final call. Like my business partner and I mean, we laugh. Sometimes we put people up for jobs and the culture team have said no, and they get the call. So that starts it, from kind of day one. And then literally we evaluate, we don't necessarily we do very regular, we don't call them performance updates, but we talk to people very regularly about their performance, and values are an integral part of that, evaluating, how they're delivering brilliance, how they're being bold, how they're taking responsibility and accountability. So it's an integral part of what we do.
And they were some of your values there. Were they bold and taking accountability?
Yeah, just fix it, just do it, be brilliant. And, when we talk about being brilliant, we didn't want to be too prescriptive to people, because everybody knows what being brilliant is. Everybody knows how to do a brilliant job, and we know that it's a choice they make. So you can get up in the morning and you can come to work and you can do an okay job, but it's a conscious choice that you make. Today I'm going to be brilliant. What does that look like for me in my role, in my job, in the opportunity that I have in front of me today? So that's been fundamental to our business, and frankly a real driver for our success, because it enables our people to make decisions by themselves. So, for example, we won't work with organisations that don't fit our values. Recently, a very junior account manager got given an opportunity. We were asked to work for a tobacco company. Funnily enough, that doesn't fit with my values. And she didn't need to ask me. She didn't need to ask the CEO. She didn't need to ask her boss. She made the call by herself, because it's like a quick question. Is that in alignment with our values? No, it's not. Tick, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Let me find you somewhere else. So that can go all the way through the organization. It doesn't need to, I don't need to make that call. And that has enabled our culture and our business to really kind of push out as we've grown.
And stay fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what your hiring success rate is? Because most organizations get it right, 1 in 4. Does the sort of values-based hiring, have you tracked it? Do you know whether you get it right more often than that?
I couldn't give you actual numbers. I'm sure the HR guys would have tracked it, certainly in the last couple of years, because they've become very grown up after I left. In terms of our attrition rate, we measure that. So we look at the people that have left us that, and occasionally we do get it wrong, very rarely. But, we have, I think it's, last call was 91%. That's of kind of, the people that we don't want to lose. I mean, occasionally we do lose them because, we can't give them the development they need. And, going back to your point, do we invest in them and then take the chance that they'll leave? Well, they may, but you know what? If we're investing in them in the time that we have them, wow, we get the best from them. Yeah. So, I would never change that.
And staying on hiring, maybe you have to tell a bit of your story first, but you stepped down from the organization 3 years ago and replaced yourself with a new CEO. I'd love you to tell me how you got that hire right. But I guess, first of all, you're going to have to tell me why you decided to step down and replace yourself.
Yeah, okay. About 3 years ago, I woke up one morning and I realized that I loved my company. I loved my people, but I didn't like my job. I didn't like being CEO. And, and I think CEOs also kind of need to reach a point sometimes where they need to get out of the way, and they also need to appreciate when it might be time to bring in different skills and a different approach. And our business had been growing, and it was still very much a kind of family business, and it really needed to go to the different, to the next level of expansion, I think, for our business. And I realized that I actually didn't want to be the person that did that. And that's a really tough realization, when you've grown this baby from literally nothing into, multi-million dollars. But I also realized that it wasn't, I was concerned about, whether I would be the person that would be able to deliver that next level. Did I want to do it? And I guess I also reached the part where, just from a personal perspective, I had kind of ticked all the boxes, I think, in terms of what success looked like. So great business, great career, beautiful family, big house, big cars, crazy lifestyle. And I woke up and thought, okay, is this everything that I wanted my life to be? So I guess kind of potentially midlife crisis, or, kind of midlife awakening. I kind of went, okay, maybe there's something more and I need to go find that. So I had a very tough discussion with my business partner. That was always, a difficult thing to do. Particularly we'd been in business for, 16 years at that point, and saying, okay, well, I want to step out was tough. But, he's very, very supportive. I wanted to go ride my motorbike around the US and just look at what different kind of personal success could look like. So we went through the process of looking for a new CEO, which was, funnily enough, it was easier than I expected it to be. I mean, particularly we looked outside of our industry. We looked inside of our industry. And then we went to people that we really knew and trusted within the industry, and we got some recommendations as well. And so we went through, actually I have to say, I know that there are horror stories out there where people got it wrong, but we went through a process of literally kind of interviewing half a dozen people, and we nailed the best CEO very, very quickly. And again, the qualities that we were looking for was, basically I didn't want to replace me, frankly, because nobody could. But, we were very clear on where the business needed to go, and we were looking at what we wanted the business to achieve in the next 5 years. And so we had a very strong set of skill sets that we believed that we needed to attract into the position to be able to do that. And, frankly, we were very fortunate to find someone very quickly that pretty much nailed all of the criteria that we were looking for. So she and I worked together for about 7 months. I have to say it was probably one of the hardest 7 months in my life, because it was very, very difficult to let go. And I had to realize that I couldn't have my cake and eat it too. I couldn't say I need to go off and explore, but yes, I'm going to micromanage you. And there were things that she wanted to do, which I struggled with. But again, I had to be the bigger man and say, you know what, I just have to let go and I have to trust her. And so the letting go period was literally over 6 or 7 months. It didn't happen overnight. She wanted it to happen overnight, but, it was kind of an educational process for me and a growing process for her. And wow, she's just doing brilliant things. So, yeah, we were very fortunate.
Fantastic. And so you went to the States and you rode your bike?
Yeah. So, as I said, I've been riding all of my life, and I have one son that's a Canadian resident. He's based in Vancouver. He was based at Whistler at the time. And so I knew that's where I wanted my journey to start. So I decided if I was going to do it, I would only do it on a bike that looked like it was going to do 100 kilometers an hour when it was standing still. No touring bike, nothing boring like that. I wanted something that was fast, aggressive, scary. So I bought the fastest production bike in the world, BMW S1000 RR. She is not supposed to be a touring bike. She doesn't know that. I call her she. Her name is Voodoo because she's dark and mysterious and she'll bite me if I get it wrong. So Voodoo and I packed up and we toured Canada and the States. We did about 23,000 kilometers, a little over 11,000 miles in 3.5 months, and literally just kind of did a massive circle down through, Washington, Oregon, California, down into New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and then back into British Columbia. So just the two of us on the road for nearly 4 months.
Fantastic. And then you wrote a book about your journey.
I did. So the book is called Riding Raw. It's the journey from empty to full. So it is literally the story. So it's the story of the journey, but also the story of my learning as I went on this trip, where you do wake up one day and you go, wow, I've got everything, but I feel empty. What is it I'm supposed to be in this world? What is it that's going to kind of give me purpose? And I guess the best way for me to describe it is that I had all the head success. So I had all the traditional measures of success, everything that we kind of evaluate ourselves on as we go through our life. But I didn't have heart success. So it's that journey, literally, from head success to heart success and finding the balance in between.
I've done some, I suppose, longish traveling trips in my life. And one of the hardest things is slowing down. I know you're on a very fast bike. Was it 11,000 miles, woof, or did you just start to sort of decompress and slow down and then have your moment of awakening? Or
it was an evolutionary process. I have a lot of conversations at gas stations, and funnily enough, there where all of my epiphanies happen, and it's one of the beauties of traveling by yourself, because if you're traveling with two people, particularly on a bike, people just go, oh, they just ignore you. When you're traveling by yourself and you've got British Columbian plates and you're a single woman and you're in New Mexico with an Australian accent, everybody wants to talk. And it's the most amazing environment, because out of nowhere, over a 5-minute conversation, they've gone from great bike, cool, what are you doing, to, wow, I didn't take opportunities in my life. I wish that I had done this. My wife left me. My brother doesn't talk to me. And you have these incredible epiphanies. And often what happens is I end up sitting down at a gas station in the dirt, in the dust, in my boots, and talking to people, sometimes for an hour, where we talk about life and experiences and things that we could have done differently. And they want to tell me their story. I guess because they're safe. I mean, I'm on a motorbike and I'm never going to see them again. So who am I going to tell their story to? So those epiphanies were amazing. And people used to say to me, wow, you're superbike. You must be going everywhere very fast. And I used to take pride in that. I'd say, yes, I am. Everything is very fast. And then I started to realize, and it's too fast. And it's too fast. And you do need to kind of slow down, and you need to drop the speed, and you need to look at the trees, and you don't need to rush from, one destination to another. Just keep ticking them off. It is, funnily enough, gosh, it's so cliche, but particularly on a motorbike, it's the journey. So it's stopping when you see something. It's instead of saying, I really can't talk to you because I really need to be somewhere else in 3 hours. It's about, you know what? Let's have a coffee and let's talk. So with all of those experiences and frankly, the learning to be vulnerable, because you're on a bike and lots of things go wrong for you, and it's the learning to be vulnerable, which I'd never allowed myself to be, and to say, you know what? Yep, need some help here. That would be great. And being able to stop being a superhero everywhere I went and just kind of be me was pretty amazing.
Fantastic. And so what's next? I mean, other than racing for the next 2 days near Seattle, you're doing some coaching, which you've mentioned?
Yeah, I do. So I coach and I do public speaking, which I really love. I'm still kind of on my motorbike for another couple of weeks, just kind of cruising and reconnecting. It's, for me, being on the bike and just packing a bag and just going, it's kind of my reset button. It brings me back. It's fascinating because I have a really amazing, exciting project that I'm just about to kind of get behind. And that's, I guess I look at my life and I kind of look at the first 30 years were all about me and growth and, and being who I wanted to be. The next 30 were about, my business and my family. I've got 2 sons that are now 22, 24, kind of stepping out and doing amazing things on their own. So, kind of that was about, business, building the business and, my family, raising my kids. And I kind of go, the next 30, that'll kind of take me to close to 90 and then I'll renegotiate, I think. So for me, it's about actually being in service. It's about giving back. And I've wanted to do this for a long time. It's been kind of sitting in the back of my head for about 10 years. I went to Nepal. My husband and I went trekking in Nepal for our honeymoon, which is kind of what you'd expect. There were no no romantic vacation sitting by a pool drinking pina coladas. We were out there, boots and all. And Nepal has always had a very special place in my heart. My son is a cinematographer and he films a lot in Nepal. They do big mountain climbing, adventurous movie shooting. And Nepal, and we lost 2 friends were killed in Nepal in the earthquake in 2015. And so my next project is actually building a school in Nepal, which I hope to break ground on early next year. So,
whereabouts in Nepal?
Well, I'm actually going on a scouting mission next month, so in October. So there are 4 different locations that I want to look at. Primarily, I think the Humla region, which is very remote. It's very difficult to get to. It's very under-resourced in terms of teachers. It's one of the challenges because it is so geographically remote. You can't get good teachers there. And it did suffer quite significantly in terms of, the last few years in terms of from the earthquake and from other kind of natural disasters. And it's a region that's in a valley, which also means that, because obviously the majority of Nepal, it used wood burning and the smoke from the fires actually just hangs in the valley. So it causes huge respiratory challenges for the kids, which often means that then they don't go to school, which means their education is lacking. So there's a raft of issues in the community that need to be addressed. And so, for example, they've just developed great technology so that they're very light but non-wood burning stoves. So for me, going scouting, I'm actually, my son that he will actually be in Nepal filming, and so he's going to be joining me. So there's 4 regions that we've identified that we just want to go and see, where best we can make an impact, the biggest impact.
Fab. I love Nepal. My great grandmother was Nepalese. I've been a few times. Yeah, no, very nice, great place. Did round Annapurna a few years ago now. So
it's stunning, and it's it's always had a place in my heart. And it's always, for about 10 years, I kind of literally had a dream 10 years ago. And strangely enough, I did a Vipassana retreat. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Okay.
Where literally you meditate, and it sounds as tough as it is, but literally you meditate for about 10 hours a day. And it's silent for 10 days. You don't speak for 10 days. And I did it last year and just had literally kind of this, it was literally an epiphany. It was like, okay, now's the time. And I've reached that point now where my boys are doing well. My business is in great hands. I'm coaching. I'm loving my clients, but it's time for me to kind of really, kind of give back. I've had a very blessed and incredible life, and to not be able to use that to give back, I think we can't be wasting a lot of the things that I've achieved. So that's the plan.
Sue, that's brilliant. There's two questions I always ask people. So actually, it's a great segue from that to the first question, which is, what is it that you know now that, not with a sense of regret, but wouldn't it have been great if? What do you know now that if you took it back in time could have made a difference?
I think there's probably two things. One is professionally, and professionally would be get out of the way, let go of control. You've employed great people. They've got great talents, great skills, great capability. Let them do their job. And, that was a tough lesson for me because, I have always been a control freak. So it's like, yeah, I know you're good, but I'm sure I can do it better. And in truth, I couldn't. And I was devaluing everything that they were bringing to the business. And I think as a CEO, as I mentioned, there does come a point in time where you need to get out of people's way and let them do the job. Have trust in the people that you've built and let go of that control so that you can focus on the business, not in the business. So that was a critical learning lesson for me, particularly as the business grew, because I literally found it hard, and it was my safe place. When all else failed as a CEO, I could roll my sleeves up and dig in because that's what, I love doing, and that's where it felt safe. And it didn't feel safe to kind of step back and go, okay, take off this. So learning to let go of control was critical. So that's probably professionally. And personally, it would have been to have found a better balance. And I actually hate the word balance. I tend to use the word harmony, because I think when you're achieving, when you want to do something great, there often is no balance. If you want to do great things in your career, in your life, with your family, there are some times where you need to focus on one specific thing. But it's about giving it your attention and a single focus. But then when you've achieved whatever it is you need to do, or the task is done, then you switch your focus back to the other areas of your life. So your family, or breathing, or, doing things for yourself. So I wish that I had been better at understanding harmony in my life.
Okay, that's great. Along the way, you probably read a few books. Do you have any that have made a difference to you that you would recommend the rest of us read?
Tony Hsieh, Happiness. It's a great book in terms of culture. I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield, so The War of Art, which is a great book. And it really, particularly if you're writing, but it talks very much about procrastination, what makes you stop, what stops you from going forward, what happens when you face excuses and you don't want to do things. And so that's an exceptional book. Jim Collins, obviously one of my faves, anything with Jim Collins. And I'm not even going to try and get his surname right, but there's an amazing book, and it's called Turn That Ship Around.
Oh, yeah. I know who you mean. Yep.
It's by a submarine commander who was given a really kind of the worst submarine in the US Naval fleet. And literally when you go out on a mission and you're away for 3 months, you can't throw people overboard if they're not doing their job. And it's about how he literally, I think it was about 3 or 4 months, turned that ship around from being one of the worst performing submarines in the US history to being the best performing submarine. And it's just amazing, and it's just full of incredible insights. And even if your business isn't doing badly, just incredible insights in terms of how to really work with people to achieve joint objectives, professional objectives and personal objectives. So one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's about giving up control, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a theme in that.
Sue, that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for talking to me. It's been my pleasure to talk to you today.
Thanks very much, Dominic. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All this information and more can be found at dominicmonkhouse.com/podcast. There you'll find show notes, additional reading and links related to this episode. You can also find my blog and the past editions of the Melting Pot newsletter. The simplest thing to do is to sign up to my subjectively not crap once a week newsletter, where I'll update you on what I've been up to, the most interesting articles I've read, and all things relating to scaling up, high-performing teams, net promoter score, company culture, etc. Social, you can find me on Twitter at Dom Monkhouse and LinkedIn at Dominic Monkhouse. LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me and share your questions and comments. Thanks for listening.